Hi, you guys. Welcome to Cancerian Chronicles. We are just going to have a little chat, no cards, no channeling. Okay. So, um, for the past couple of days, I've noticed on like my TikTok, and this is, I haven't really been doing anything with it. I'm not that big of a fan, right? And so, a guy that I used to just kind of date, talk to, whatever, um, he has been going really hard with wanting to like all of my videos and things like that. And I am totally a once something is in the past, it stays in the past. And I'm very upfront. I let people know this like right off the bat. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny, but this is a person that I started to talk to him. And of course, you notice like a lot of, where people weren't really taking notice of him before, all of a sudden, you know, other women start to kind of flock to him. And we already like we're not going to get into like what that's about, right? But that's typically how that happens. But I did give the warning when I started to notice like, hey, I know you're feeling yourself, like people are starting to take interest in you, and once I'm done, like I walk away and it's over. So, very upfront about that. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Like they started to pull their attention away, which, if you are not showering me with attention, like I lose interest really quickly. So, moved on, no big deal. But now this person is coming back, and I made it clear, like, do not call me, like, all of that. And so they're trying the next best thing, which is to like all of my videos and posts and things like that. Yeah, it's not gonna work. So then a couple of days ago, I get a phone call or some text messages from a family member that I had already kind of cut out of my life because when I notice that people are don't have like my best interest at heart, the old me was like one of those like I'm gonna love you no matter what. I'm gonna try to fix this. I'm gonna I try to keep people in my life, and that's probably a Cancerian trait, and it's often something that leads to like us getting hurt or feelings hurt at the very least, right? So that was one of my life lessons. That's one of the lessons that I had to learn and something that I've had to overcome. I feel like I've done pretty well with that. But here comes a family member wanting to, like, hey, how are you? Like they want to reconnect and, get back to having like a close relationship. And again, once you have been categorized as like, being a part of my past, then that's really where you're going to remain. Like there's no coming back from that. So, and of course, this morning I wake up and there is a phone call from this is someone that I dated, another person that I dated temporarily. Um, and I noticed, I'm like, okay, what is going on here? Like, why are these past people trying to get back into my life? And I'm like, is this like a Mercury retrograde going on or something? Because I mean, I'm aware of it, but I don't really pay that close attention to it. And honestly, I don't really give Mercury retrogrades, like I don't give them that much credit for playing a major role in my life. But I cannot negate the fact that it is true. I do get a lot of like past people trying to, wake themselves up from the dead, like they want to come back into my life. And that's one of the major telltale signs or characteristics, or something that we do know about Mercury retrograde. So I look it up and I find out that Mercury retrograde is coming. It's coming to town, right? And the pre-shadow phase is starts on November 7th. So for me, I do notice like when there are astrological events, a lot of the time, even like full moons, new moon, like all of those type of energies kind of affect me a little bit earlier. Is something that I've noticed. So if you're into astrology, even a little bit, You may want to like check the patterns and see, do things typically happen earlier for you? Is it right on time? Is it a little bit later? Because honestly, I look at those astrological events as really more of like a guide or like a heads up. I don't take Mercury retrograde as like something that's going to, condemn me or control my life. I take it as like, it's a heads up, like, oh, okay, thanks for the heads up. Like, that's how I look at Mercury retrogrades, right? So it's happening November 7th. That's the pre shadow. And with all of the ending phases or whatever, like it's set to be in place up until basically January 2nd. Okay. And one of the major characteristics, like I said, it has to do with like past people coming back in your life. Mercury retrograde has a really funny way of pulling people and issues from the past back into our lives. And just know that like this is not something that's random. Typically what it is this is stuff that is unresolved. Either this is something that you need some type of closure on, or it's a pattern. If you pay attention, it's a pattern that you need to recognize and you need to break. Okay. So just kind of be careful with that. So when someone comes from the past, they show up, it's kind of easy like to get swept up in those old feelings or emotions that you used to have for them, especially when it comes to an ex. So like an ex, sometimes they'll leave things like out, they'll leave things like open ended, which is really bad for, not bad, but like we'll just use that. Like it feels really bad for, I'm gonna say, like for example, Cancerians, because that's what, my platform is kind of aimed at, right? Like it's really bad for us because we like closure. Really, women in general, or some people in general, we just like closure. And so when you have a relationship that ended, like, and it's like in the open, like there was no, hey, this is the end, or hey, we're breaking up, or hey, like don't call, I'm not talking to you, like whatever, that's considered something that's left open ended. And it's kind of easy to jump right back into, I'm hearing somebody that you used to know. So those feelings that you used to have and the way that you used to, like the good times, that you're kind of swept up in the good times with that person. Same thing like with friends, if it just kind of faded out, again, that's like kind of left out in the open. There was no closure there. And even family members that you have not heard from in ages, they kind of suddenly pop up and they bring those old feelings back with them. So, keeping in mind that Mercury retrograde is about showing you a pattern that you need to break, or it's about a lesson that you need to learn. I'm just going to give some tips, or things that you just kind of need to be aware of like during Mercury retrograde. Okay. And I'm going to use my notes for this. Okay. So the first thing is, check your initial reaction. Okay. So when you receive the phone call, like as it's on your screen, when you see the phone call from this past person, how does it make you feel when you see the text message? So notice your first feelings when this person reaches out to you. Do you feel excited? Do you feel nervous? Do you feel annoyed? Do you feel disgusted? Like, how do you feel when you notice this person reaching out? That is a major clue. Your body knows before you're going to know, I would say, like before your head, like before it reaches your head, your body is going to kind of give you this signal of like how you really feel about this person. Even if your mind kind of gets to the point to where you kind of delude yourself into thinking like remembering those good times, right? Don't ignore that initial gut feeling that you get. Okay, this is a major clue on how you're meant to handle when this person comes back into your life. The second thing is, ask yourself, why now? Like, why is this person all of a sudden wanting to come back into your life? Like, if you have been hearing crickets or mum's the word or things faded out and they didn't make an attempt to reach out to you, because maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I would take it as typically, um, some of us, like, we give a lot of time and energy, and when it's not being reciprocated, like, we will continue until it just kind of fades off or falls off, and then we just kind of move on, right? So that means that this person up until that point did not reach out, or they were not trying to give you the energy that you deserved. So why now? Why do they want to come back now all of a sudden? There's a reason that they come back during Mercury retrograde. I'm going to go back to that. So just kind of take note of that. Do you think that they're coming back because they're genuinely interested in reconnecting? Or are they just bored or lonely or looking for something familiar? Are they coming back to bring some type of positivity into your life, or are they just a distraction that you don't need? So, especially, like, let's say you've decided that you're going to build a business, you're going to work on a project, you're going to focus on your hobbies, you're going to focus on yourself, and then lo and behold, here comes this person that you hadn't seen, you hadn't heard from, they weren't making any effort, and now that you're deciding to focus on yourself, they're coming back. That's a hint, that's a clue that they're just coming back as a distraction. Okay. So just kind of pay attention to that. The third thing is reflect on what was unresolved. Okay. Think about why the relationship ended, or why did it fade out? Was it healthy? Was it toxic? Okay. And you have to be really honest with yourself about that. And I'm even going to say, you guys, I'm going to go back a little bit. I say, like, these are people that come back, from the past. But I'm not going to lie. Like, you can even have someone that's in your life right now that you see every day, but you barely talk. They barely pay attention to you. They act like they don't want to be in a relationship with you, right? And then all of a sudden, it's Mercury retrograde, and you've decided that you're going to be done with a relationship, or you're going to let things just kind of play out, and you're going to walk away, and lo and behold, all of a sudden they feel you start to just kind of back away, and now they want to be back in your life because for whatever reason. Again, going back to, that's potentially a lesson that you're meant to learn, or some type of unhealthy cycle that you're meant to take notice of, and you're meant to break that pattern or break that cycle. Okay. So, also, you want to think about, like, is there anything left unsaid that could bring some type of closure or peace, right? If this is someone who consistently drains your energy, ask yourself if they truly need to be back in your life. So again, that's another hint or clue as to why a person is returning, and what lesson you're needing to learn, or what cycle you need to break. Because it's possible, like, if this is a person that's coming back and they typically drain you, then you could potentially have a habit or a pattern of attracting or bringing in, I'm hearing the word narcissist, but I know that that one's kind of played out. So I'm just going to say, even energy vampires, people that come and they drain all of your energy, and then they just kind of dip out. So if you have a habit or a pattern of attracting those people, or hanging on to those people, not setting boundaries with those people, then there's another hint or clue as to the cycle, the pattern that you need to break, or the lesson that you need to learn. Okay. And also a hint or a clue as to why they're back in your life. They need more energy, right? So, the fourth thing is, you want to make sure that you decide if you're seeking closure or connection with that relationship. I personally don't believe that you need closure in a relationship. Like, if the relationship ends in any type of way, whether things are left unsaid or not, I feel like that's your closure, that the relationship is over. But I know that we're all different. So you have to do what works for you. Okay. So sometimes we just want some closure, and we end up falling back into old patterns. Like, maybe it's like, okay, well, I'm going to talk to them this time, and, I'm going to say my piece. I'm going to speak my piece, and then I'm going to end the relationship, and then there's my closure. But if you're, I'm hearing the word gigolo now for some reason, but if if you deal with certain people that they're very charismatic, they know, like you have a history with them, they know what to say, they know what to do. Sometimes you can find yourself falling back into lust like love with this person. You can find yourself, falling for whatever head games that they typically play with you. So you have to kind of be mindful of that. Okay. Be clear on what you want before you respond to this person. If you're hoping for a fresh start, like there's nothing wrong with that, it's completely up to you. But make sure that it's grounded in reality and not nostalgia. Make sure that you're not just sitting around bored yourself, right? Make sure that you are not like in love with a version of a person that you created in your head that's not really reality. Make sure that you are not making a decision based off of like some pretty words that someone said to you, but they never backed it up with action. So I'm going to go back to like this morning. I told you, I woke up and there was a phone call from someone that I used to talk to. And the thing with this person was that he loves to like make promises, just like the future faking, like he was really big with the future faking type energy. And I'm not gonna lie, like sometimes it's fun to just like play into the fantasy even though that it's completely BS, right? But when I get bored with that, I'm bored with it and I'm done. Like I can get a new person to paint another fantasy, right? So just kind of be mindful of that you didn't actually fall for the fantasy. You didn't actually fall for the future faking. Like if this person never had any actual actions to back up what it is that they said or whatever promises that they made for you, you have to cut that off and you have to let it go. And that goes back to what old habit or pattern you need to break, or what lesson you need to learn. Perhaps your lesson is that you don't allow people to string you along with all words and no action, right? So, or like you need to cut people off that don't hold true to what they say when their actions and their words don't align. Then perhaps you have a habit of allowing them to do that and you need to cut them off. And that's what this Mercury retrograde is about for you. Like just really pay attention to that when it comes to these people as they come into your life, right? So number 5 is set boundaries immediately. Set boundaries immediately. Set boundaries immediately. If you do you decide to engage, be clear about what you're open to and what you're not open to. Just because they come back, it does not mean that they're entitled to all of your time, your energy, or your emotions. Make sure that you protect your peace first and foremost. And going back to peace, like if this person has gone ghost, you haven't seen them for a while, and you have been living a really nice, peaceful existence, right? In the time that they have been gone, you really want to reflect on, was it peaceful when you were dealing with them? And if not, why would you want to allow them back into your energy and back into your space, right? So here's the thing, and I know it might not be very nice, but when, like, how to deal with people, to call their bluff, right? Because just like they may know you, you probably know them. So like for example, the person that called today, I did let this person know, like, unless you're sending me a cash app with some money as an apology, I'm not answering your phone call ever. And when I say that this person has been I promise you, it's like every Mercury retrograde, this person comes to try to like test the boundaries to see if I'm going to fold, to see if I'm going to give up. And this has been going on for 2 years. And for 2 years, I look at this person as they call, or I wake up to a call from this person and I never respond back. Because that's my like, it's this person's prerogative, or like it's their decision if they want to meet the requirement or if they don't. But if you're like, I've given you enough of my time, I've given you enough of my energy, and I'm not going to give you any more. So that's, and that doesn't mean that that's what you need to do for your people. But if you know that like someone has a habit of wasting your time, don't allow them back in like just free of charge, right? So like let's say like I don't know, like one of your things is like you really want, sorry, with a face, let me stop. If one of your things that you really want is to be married, and you spent a lot of time, a lot of energy in a relationship, like maybe you dated or you were, in a committed relationship for 2 years or, something like that, and you never got married. And here the person comes back trying to like, like they're trying to flitter back into your life. Like it could be that, like, listen, if you're not here to be serious, and to talk about marriage within X amount of time, like don't come back in my life, or you have this amount of time before I cut you off completely. Like you have to know what's going to work for you, and just kind of be careful that you're not going to get like wrapped back up into that relationship or like those old habits. I mean, I don't know, like what's going to work for you. If this is like an old friend where things faded out, and like let's say the issue is that you did all of the calls, like you called them, they never did reach out to you like with a phone call unless like they wanted something, or something that benefited them or only them, maybe that's something that it is. Well, then you could set up this boundary with your, friend, to say, you know what, I really, I really love spending time with you. I really love talking to you. And I really would like to continue a friendship with you. But I noticed that you only call me when you need something. And, or you only call to talk about like your issues or your problems. And when I want to talk about what's going on with my life, you kind of disappear or you're too busy. So if I'm going to allow you back into my life, into my energy, into my space, this is what I expect of you. And if you can agree to that, then, we can be friends. If not, I think it's best that we go our separate ways. Like that's something that you can say, to a friend or really to anyone. I mean, I don't know. Okay. Let's see. Oh, number 6, stay grounded in the present. Remind yourself of who you are now, not who you were back then. People grow, but that doesn't mean that they're ready for the new you, the new version of you, or that they've changed as much as you have. Some people don't, some people never change, you guys. And the reason that it's not going to work with that person is because you've grown, you've learned your lessons, you're applying the things, from what you've learned, and they're not. Right. And they're never going to get it. They're not going to get the new version of you. These would be people perhaps that always remind you of like, do you remember the time? Like, do you remember when you did this? Do you remember when you did that? And that's like a completely old version of you. They don't know the new version of you, and they don't want to get to know the new version of you. They like the old you. Okay. So those are people where like that season with them is over. And perhaps, going back to the initial message of like Mercury retrograde is here to teach you, like it's either about like a lesson that you're meant to learn with this person or a habit that you need to break. So then perhaps the lesson is that some people are in our lives for a season or a reason. And when that's over, it's okay to let them go. No hard feelings. Okay. It's okay. So just kind of pay attention to that. Number 7 is don't romanticize the past. And I think I've kind of talked about that a little bit, but Mercury retrograde loves to make things seem like sweeter or more meaningful than what they actually were. Going back to what I talked about with the person that loves to do like the future faking, with the promises that they don't really keep, that type of thing. Or yeah, so it's easy to fall into that trap of just remembering also the good times. Remember, I just do you remember the time? Like remembering those good times, but then but don't let that selective memory cloud your judgment where you only remember the good from that person. Like also remember why things kind of fell off in the first place. Because again, that's a hint or a clue as to what you need to kind of habit or pattern or cycle you need to go ahead and break. Anonymous, yes, I keep hearing that. So I love that. Okay. So, number 8, you guys, prepare for them to disappear again. Okay. With this Mercury retrograde, be prepared for them to ghost you again. And especially if you did not like learn a lesson, they're going to ghost you and they'll be back the next one. Okay. They'll be back for the next Mercury. They'll be back the next go round. So, people returning during the retrograde, they often do not stay. They might just pop in because they need some validation or some temporary comfort. Remember, we talked about, sometimes people are bored or they just need a temporary distraction. So, just kind of be mindful of that. They're back to use you for something. They're back. They need another dose, another hit of your energy, even, right? So, if they leave as quickly as they came back, don't be surprised and don't be disappointed. Okay. I would just say again, remember Mercury retrograde for me, it's like a heads up. So, like, just kind of take note of when the next Mercury retrograde is going to take place. Take a note in a journal or something. And so that you can see, like, watch, this person is going to be back around this time. And sure enough, when they come back around, you know to handle it in a different way. Okay. So yeah, number 9, forgive if you want to, like if that's your thing, if you care about forgiveness and stuff. But don't forget the lessons. The retrograde is a chance for you to heal. And sometimes that means forgiving and just letting go. Mostly, I say letting go. Okay. Because anytime that I talk about forgiving, it's about like forgiving yourself, because sometimes that forgiveness that we have to give, it's not anything about the other person. It's about forgiving yourself for feeling like, maybe you went against your intuition. Maybe you feel like you betrayed yourself. Like that's what you are essentially forgiving. It has nothing to do like with the other person. Okay. Forgive if you need to, but remember what you learned from that person or situation so that you don't repeat the mistakes. Because oftentimes, I know it's a little bit weird, but when people come into my life, whether it is like, people are going to do people things. And if I feel slighted in the least, or like I like to look for the lesson that I was meant to learn, or like where I went wrong, and I thank them for the lesson. Like that's how I look at it. Like, thank you for the lesson. If I slipped up and I didn't, listen to my intuition, I didn't, I went against, my gut feeling. That is for me, it's like a reminder to, always put myself first, or to always listen, to always go with my gut. So for me, it's a reminder, and I just thank people for the reminder. I know, like my mom, she says all the time, like I'm kind of naive, right? Like I believe everyone is like good at heart, and hopefully they are. But sometimes I will get a lesson as a reminder that not all people have your best interest at heart, and sometimes like it's a lesson in boundaries, right? Um, because especially for Cancerians or water signs, if you're not careful, you allow people to like overstep boundaries, or you don't set boundaries with people, and that could be a continuing a repetitive pattern or cycle that you have to break. But again, a lot of the time, it's not about what that person did. It's about like how you feel about yourself for allowing someone to cross certain boundaries or lines, right? And it happens. It's life. Number 10 is for you to just use it as a self check, right? And that's, I love, okay, so that might be weird for me to say, like, I love Mercury retrograde, because, like, I told, the guy that I told you guys at the beginning that I got the phone call from, like, I'm looking and I'm like, and he called at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, I was asleep, right? And I see that he called when I woke up, and it's like, and like I said, he calls like probably every Mercury retrograde. He calls and I never answer. And I love it though, because it lets me know how far I've come. It lets me see how much I've healed. It shows me that yes, I can stand on business, right? Whereas the old version of me, perhaps I didn't, right? And so I definitely use it as a self check. But if there's a certain type of person that keeps returning, into your life or a familiar pattern that just keeps repeating, it's a sign that there is something deeper to address within yourself. Use Mercury retrograde as a chance to break cycles rather than to re-enter them. So just remember, like, the people are going to keep coming. Those past people, those past situations, they're going to keep coming to test you, right? But just use that to just kind of see, like, do your own check to see how far you've come. Okay. The bottom line is that not every person or issue from the past needs a second chance or a third or a fourth or a fifth. Like, how many chances you give, right? But that retrograde is a test. So make sure that you stay focused on what truly serves you and don't feel any pressure to reopen doors that are better left closed, locked. Okay. Only let people back in if it's in line with your growth and goals, not out of habit or comfort. And so I'm going to go back to, where I talked about, making sure that what they say and what they do is aligned. Okay. So that's all that I wanted to talk about for the Mercury retrograde. I hope that that is helpful. Again, the pre-shadow starts November 7th. So in a couple of days, depending on when you're watching this video, it's going to be basically in effect up until January 2nd, somewhere around there. So the good news is we start off the new year like with a completely fresh start. So just kind of keep that in mind. There are other things that Mercury retrograde is supposed to affect. If you want me to talk about that in another video, just let me know. And I might also do like a card reading on Mercury retrograde, like for important information that we need to know, or, be on the lookout for, what perhaps something that we don't see coming or something like that. So just kind of stay tuned for that. You guys, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, share the video, all of that good stuff. Also, I have memberships now. So if you're interested in the memberships, go ahead and check those out. I did a little video on it, and there's a link, or there will be a link maybe in the description box that you can click on if you're interested in finding out about my memberships and potentially joining. I would love it if you did. So it's brand new. We'll see how that goes. And there you have it. So thank you so much for watching. I love you, and have a beautiful and fantabulous rest of your day. Bye now. Mwah.